Wisconsin Broadcasters Association Hall of Famer Bob Berry ruled Milwaukee's airwaves in the 60s and 70s. He spoke with countless musicians and celebrities over the years. Bob collected remarkable recordings of these encounters, which he's now sharing with the public. Here's Bob.
Today's guest is someone who's been at the center of baseball for decades. Not just a fan of the game, but as someone who helped shape the way we know it today. We're talking about former Commissioner of Baseball, Bud Selig. He led the league for more than 20 years through some of the biggest changes and challenges the sport has ever seen. Things like the wild card, the expanded playoffs, interleague play, and landmark achievements like record-breaking attendance. Love him or debate him, there's no question his time in charge left a lasting mark on the game. But beyond the headlines and history, Bud is, at his core, just a lifelong baseball guy like us, someone who grew up loving the sport and never let go of it. Today, we'll hear some stories and talk about baseball from the man who lived it at every level. We're talking with Baseball Commissioner Bud Selig. Bud, what were your feelings in 1957 when the Braves won the pennant and won the World Series, and what was the euphoria of Wisconsin experiencing that?
Well, I was just a young man, Bob, then out of college and out of the service, and been a great baseball fan for a long time. And I'll never forget that year. It made a really lasting impression on me. The excitement here was unbelievable. Braves attendance in those days was spectacular by today's standards. Not great, but by those standards, unbelievable. The interest was stunning. The World Series was so riveting. The whole year was just spectacular. I've often said the night that Hank Aaron hit the home run off of Billy Muffet to beat the Cardinals will forever remain one of my top thrills in my long career. I was sitting in the upper deck that night, and it was unbelievable. It was just, you had to see it to believe it. And the whole year, getting Red Shane Means that year on June 15th, and Hurricane Hazel. Legendary story. A kid comes up, and for the last 2-3 months of the year, that just hits balls that were incredible. Of course, Warren Spahn, Johnny Logan, Eddie Matthews, Del Crandall, everybody. It was a storybook year, and I think that the people of my generation will always remember that year.
Right. Did you attend a lot of the Braves games?
I did. I attended an enormous amount of them, and listened to games. Earl Gillespie's golden voice.
Oh yeah.
And Blaine Walsh, and it was a legendary year that made you very proud to be from Milwaukee. It was great. Went down to Wrigley Field, watched the Braves play down there. It was a very special team and a very special year.
Of course, we'll all remember being called Bush Leaguers. Do you think that helped a lot for the...
Well, that was during the World Series. I got the other side of that story. You know, Bob Fischel, who in those days was the PR man for the Yankees and later worked for the American League and baseball for years, and I got to know Bob very well. He was a wonderful human being. Sort of denied that Casey had actually said that, and but he did. People did. I think it galvanized the community, and funny because Casey had managed here in the 40s, so he knew Milwaukee pretty well. But here you were, the Milwaukee Braves playing the mighty New York Yankees of Yogi Berra, Whitey Ford, Mickey Mantle. It was something, and beat them, and it was a great story.
How is history going to look upon the Braves?
Well, it was a great story. I had a writer ask me that today, as a matter of fact, Bob. The story that ended very sadly in 1965. So it was a quick bit of history, a great story. First team moved in the history of baseball. it set off a lot of other moves. Ultimately even played a role in setting up expansion. It was such a wonderful story. You know, Walter O'Malley of the Dodgers used the Braves moving to Milwaukee as a reason to leave Brooklyn because he couldn't compete, he said, out of old tired Ebbets Field. And whether one believes that or not, that's what he said. And it was true, the Braves' attendance was just spectacular. You know, when they moved here in 1953, they drew 1,826,000. It was an all-time record. I mean, those were numbers that nobody had ever dreamed of before. So it was good. It was a great period. It had a very sad ending, but you know, fortunately, Milwaukee has baseball now, and then all is well that ends well. But it was a great story. But the last 2 years were tough years.
You think if Fred Miller would have lived, he would have purchased the team, or?
Well, you know, you never know that. I mean, I know that was a conventional wisdom. Whether that's true or not, nobody will ever know. And but once Perini sold to Bill Bartholomew and his group, things began to unravel badly, and kind of when my career started, I found myself in the middle of all that.
Speaking of that, let's kind of trace your history. Did you ever actually work for Selig Ford?
Oh, I was in the family business.
Okay.
I sure did. I got out of college, got out of the service. Really thought I was going back to Madison because I wanted to be a history professor. And my dad said, well, why don't you give me a year or two in our businesses, leasing business, retail businesses. I did that and I enjoyed it. And that's when I began to meet a lot of Braves players and other people. So I did. I worked in the businesses for a long, long time, even when I was trying to get a team from Milwaukee.
Now, when you moved the Brewers here, and of course they won the World Series, what was the feeling then? What was your feeling? You must have been pretty excited.
In 1982 was a spectacular year. We had actually had 4 or 5 years that led up to it. 78 was a great year. 79 was a great year. 81, I'll always believe we would have won, but for the strike of 50 days, and we beat Detroit in the playoff, and then lost to the Yankees in a very tough playoff. 82, we won the American League pennant, beat Baltimore in the last game of the year, and then came home here. We were 0-2 with the Angels and beat the Angels. And lost to the Cardinals in 7 games, but I really believe that Raleigh Fingers was hurt, and I happened to be in St. Louis, Bob, a couple of weeks ago, and Bruce Suter and a lot of the guys were there, and they all said to me, St. Louis was celebrating the 82 champs as well as were the other World Championship teams, and they said if you guys had fingers, you probably would have beaten us, and that's true. But that's like a lot of other things we didn't, so. But it was a thrill. It was a thrill to play in the World Series, and came close a few other times. But that was it's hard to describe what a thrill that is.
How do you compare the 87 Brewers with the 57
Brewers?
Braves? 82, right?
82. Well. They are very comparable in a lot of cases. I mean, baseball had changed a lot, so different, but you know, when you look back on the 82 Brewers, you had Yount is in the Hall of Fame, and Molitor is in the Hall of Fame, and 57 Braves, of course, you had Hank Aaron, who also closed his career with the Brewers, and Eddie Matthews and Warren Spahn. And Red Shandies, as a matter of fact, came over. And by the way, you know, something Eddie Matthews said to me about a year or so before he passed away, you know, we were in Cooperstown and Red Shandies walked by. And Eddie and my wife and I were having a great conversation, and Eddie said, you know, Commissioner, if we don't get Shandies, we don't win. People have forgotten that Red Shandies really came over, and he was magnificent. So both teams were very good. Fingers pitched for us up until the last month of the season. He's in the Hall of Fame. So both clubs really had Hall of Famers, and they were very talented baseball teams.
And what was your favorite Brewer story?
The favorite Brewer story? Oh, I've had a lot of them. It's hard to pick one out. I think winning the last game in Baltimore, Don Sutton beat Jim Palmer. That's pretty good. You got 2 great Hall of Fame pitchers going. And then coming back here 0-2 and winning those 3 games. I'll never forget the last Sunday game in County Stadium. Then he said it was the loudest crowd they had ever heard. But there have been so many thrills. Mauler's hitting streak, a 13-game winning streak in '87. I really left there in 1992, Bob, to become commissioner, and it was the last 15 years we were over 500 a lot. There were a lot of really exciting things, and just being able to watch Young play every day. I mean, he was so good. It reminded me of watching Hank Aaron play in the 50s, quite frankly. You knew you were watching somebody very special. And Eddie Matthews was right there, Warren Spahn, certainly 363 lifetime wins. Don McMahon, great relief pitcher coming out. We had Fingers. It was, those clubs really have a lot of things in common.
You've had a wonderful life, Bud, and how would you like to be remembered?
Well, Bob, I've often said I'm going to let historians judge that. My commissionership has been the most active commissionership in history. The sport's never been more popular than it is today. We're going to set another attendance record for the 4th year in a row, which is spectacular. And so I feel good about things. I really do. I think press has been very kind to me in the last couple of years. There was a lot of change. It was very painful. But the changes have worked, and that's why we're drawing 76 million. We were talking about the Braves attendance before. We had one team drew over 4 million. We had 8 teams last year drew over 3 million. We had 23 teams draw over 2 million. I mean, we're at record attendance levels now that nobody has ever seen, but yet there was something very special. And the great thing about this sport is its history. And you know, the thing I'll always be proudest of with all that I've accomplished as a commissioner is bringing baseball back to Milwaukee. I know how tough it was. The odds were really stacked against us. And though I remember the night of March 31st, 1970, we got the team, I had an enormous feeling of satisfaction because everybody had told me that it was impossible, it would never happen. And the Braves had left here with all that anger and all that hatred, and it was a bad situation. But as I said, everything has worked, and now there's Miller Park there. There was a lot of frustration getting that built. When you deal in the public sector, there's always a lot of frustration. But baseball is now here for the next 2 or 3 generations, and that's the important thing.
Congratulations, Bud.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see you. Thank you.
Bob Berry, WOKY 9092.
Thank you for listening to Bob Berry's Unearthed Interviews. Be sure to subscribe and rate our podcast wherever you find your podcasts. You can find all our episodes at WisconsinBroadcastersMuseum.org. Check out Bob Berry's book, Rock and Roll Radio Milwaukee. Book sale proceeds support Donate Life Wisconsin. Special thanks to Wisconsin Historical Society and for financial support from WBA Hall of Famer Terry Bond.